am going to introduce our speaker for today. Miss Carrie Severson is an author, a keynote speaker, and a creator of the Enoughness Method. I'll turn it over to Carrie.
Everything changed for us during the 5th week of treatment. My husband, Gavin, he had head and neck cancer. By the 5th week, he had second-degree burns on the outside of his neck. The inside of his throat was covered in scabs. And he developed this really unfortunate side effect that a lot of cancer patients had. We called it the Slimer effect, Ghostbuster style. His mouth would fill with mucus, and not just like a little tiny drool and it goes away. Constant slime. It was not fun. He would get it stuck in his throat. He'd move into a state of panic. He would spit out, cough up, pull up these huge ropes. It would catch a scab, and then pillows and pillows of blood would fall out everywhere. To avoid having that happen anywhere but our home, he opted out of talking. So it was sign language, I love you. Or if he was asked a question, he would point to me. I wasn't just his wife, I was his voice. I had to fight him a lot on his behalf to help save him, and then turn around and navigate a system I didn't fully understand. I was burnt out. I was very surprised that I wasn't able to handle it better because I'd been burnt out several times before, first as an entrepreneur in 2012 before burnout was a buzzword, and then again during COVID. But caregiving burnout introduced me to a level of apathy I was not expecting. Burnout robs us of little tiny pieces of our humanity. It affects our brains, our bodies, our nervous system, our spirit. We're irritated with people. We snap at people. We have tons of brain fog. Our bellies are all messed up. We're not sleeping. So all I had left to give this sweet man was the truth. And the truth was, honey, you were going to die without a feeding tube. Burnout is a systematic issue here. It should be addressed from the top down. Burnout is not something that goes weeds on. And if you're failed by the system, you're reaching out, lashing out at people, you're failing yourself, maybe snapping at a client, a colleague, a patient, and then in turn, those folks are turning around and doing this as well. So we all lose. But since we can't force policy, we can't force change, the third belief I came up with about this industry specifically is that we have to take radical responsibility for our own well-being, pour into ourselves first, make decisions every single day that we are going to show up as our best self. And that happens through microdosing, vagus nerve stimulation, transitions. My guess is you ask a dozen people every day, how can I help? How are you? How do you feel? And from the time you walk into your work to the time you walk back into your house, you don't stop once to be like, hey, self, how's it going? How do you feel? What's bothering you? That has to change. Self-assessing is the first step in giving ourselves some compassion, giving ourselves some grace, climbing out of this dark well of burnout. And it's nothing more than asking yourself one simple question. That's what I would do on the floor of the hospital. When my husband was off in someone else's care, I would self-assess behind the plant on the floor, hemming and hawing and singing and yin yogiing. The one question you ask yourself is, am I safe? And my husband, in his crazy high, reaches over to my leg and squeezes it 3 times. And in my mind, I'm thinking, I can't believe you. Seriously, right now, dude. I don't respond. So he does it again. His way of getting my attention. So I look over at him and I'm like, what? And he says, it'll be okay. Nope. Mister, you're dying. We need a feeding tube. So I stood up, hitched up my husband, looked at her. She didn't say anything. Fine, I'll take him to the ER. And she says, the ER isn't going to help you either. So at that point, I'm walking down the hallway. I'm in full panic attack. I can feel it. My throat's closed. My belly is extended. I want to scream. I want to run. Get him into the lobby. Set him down into the recliner, pull the lever. When we get to the state of heightened panic, that rat in our mind is running his race really fast. It's incredibly hard to just shift out of sympathetic into parasympathetic. Really hard to trade it off, which is why we have to do these small microdosing simulations through our day so that we don't get escalated. We don't end up at this point of panic. He gets wheeled back. I can feel myself softening. So I force myself out of the building. Force myself across the street into a park. There's a bench. It's next to some water, a beautiful fountain. And I start regulating. I'm screaming, I'm crying. I'm doing all the tools I know how to do. The Enoughness Method was something I created for myself when I first burned out in 2012. No one was talking about it back then. But I realized we can do certain things to trick our minds to tell our bodies that we're safe, that we're in a good place, that our happiness mechanism has been turned on. But we just have to find the certain thing that works. So we address our spirit, kind of coming back to that realization of why we got into this industry in the first place by self-assessing. Am I safe? Getting clear. Our bodies, vagus nerve stimulation. We have to address our minds. Cognitive reframing is a great technique. Therapists use it in therapy. We don't have to be in therapy to do it. It is giving our minds an opportunity to look at a situation through a different lens, different perspective. And we're asking the same question twice. We're looking at a situation, maybe a conflict happened in the workplace with a colleague, or conflict happened with a patient. We're looking at that. The question is, what is true here? What's true here? What's true here is this was uncomfortable. This was devastating. This was a hard conversation to have. We're going to ask it again, but this time looking at the perspective of how we showed up in that situation. What else is true here? What else is true? I used my skill set. I gave somebody at the end of their life. I used my voice. I asked for help. Cognitive reframing. It's a great technique to use before you really step out of that situation. You're going to take a moment, ask yourself, what is true here? Therefore, your brain doesn't start telling you all this negativity, all this head trash gets in, and the whole day sort of tanks, right? He gets admitted to the long-term cancer wing. He stays for 2 days. He stays for 2 weeks. He got a feeding tube, new drugs, made it through. The skin of his teeth was incredibly hard. his journey as well as mine. My journey as his caregiver didn't stop because his treatment did. The very next day his treatment ends, it's the very first day I get to put energy back on me, get to start climbing out of burnout. I recognize I've put on 4 dress sizes in 4 months. I can't sleep. I can't think clearly. My life existed to help save his. And I was fried. And he tells me, he comes up to me and he's like, honey, I feel like I've been a dog on a chain the last little while here. I need to get out of town. Let's go on a road trip. And I'm looking at him and I'm looking at all the drugs. I have to bolus feed him, which I had to learn how to do. And I don't have it in me. So walk up to him, give him a big old hug and kiss. And I'm like, honey, I'm so grateful you're living, but I need you to do the dishes now. And that's what we did. He started participating more. He started getting better, got the feeding tube removed. He's on his journey. I'm on mine. And now we actually run this podcast together called I Saved You Now Do the Dishes, where I get to talk about caregiving and he gets to talk about being a patient.